Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that you've said that these activities have since stopped, but I'm really disturbed by some of the youth targeting, and I think we need to dig into it a little bit more. Juul has tried to reach youth in settings other than schools, as was briefly touched on, but Exhibit 21 is an agreement for Juul to fund a youth program run by Richmond, California's Police Activities League. Juul's signed agreement with Richmond PAL states that the program includes, quote, youth aged 12 to 17 who face suspension from schools for using e-cigarettes and or marijuana. And it specifies that, quote, all youth will participate in the Juul Labs developed program, Moving Beyond. So, Ms. Gould, Juul created the tobacco prevention curriculum that would be presented to these kids, correct?
Congressman, as I noted earlier, we did work with experts to create a curriculum that we have since ceased using.
Okay. So the contract shows that Juul paid the Richmond PAL $89,000. In exchange for that payment, Juul got to provide its curriculum controlling the information presented to a group of potential customers, preteens and teens already using e-cigarettes. That's another page out of Big Tobacco's playbook. So, Ms. Gould, perhaps an odd question for you. Juul didn't run a summer camp, did it?
So there were a number of, and I believe we can follow up with the number. There were a number of grants that were made to several programs. They were all focused on youth prevention or wellness.
So Exhibit 22 is a contract for Juul to fund a summer camp for students of Baltimore's Freedom and Democracy Charter School. According to this contract, it was a 5-week summer camp for 80 kids centering on, quote, healthy life adventures. Ms. Gould, this contract says that, quote, student participants will be recruited from grades 3 through 12. Did Juul honestly sponsor a summer camp for third graders?
I would have to check the contracts, but as I stated, whatever grants were made were focused on youth prevention efforts.
So Juul covered the costs for personnel, travel, equipment, and supplies, and Exhibit 23 shows an invoice for $134,000 to fund this program. Of that, Juul paid $76,000 to hire 19 people to run the program. So, Ms. Gould, in exchange for that large payment, the charter school committed to sharing student data. This is the part that's particularly disturbing to me. Sharing student data from pre- and post surveys, journals and activity logs kept by students, and pre- and post test scores. Why did you need that data?
I'm not aware of the details of that, so I would have to get back to you.
So paying to access kids' data from kids as young as 8 is alarming, to say the least, and I can only imagine the possible uses of that data in the hands of a big tobacco company like Juul. Juul also tried to reach young people through faith-based organizations. Exhibit 24 is an agreement with Life Skills, Inc. to partner with Juul and church groups to provide health education to 1,000 youth in Baltimore. Ms. Gould, was Juul aware that Big Tobacco had funded similar life skills programs beginning in the late 1990s?
As I noted earlier, it was in May of 2018 we received information from a public health expert informing us on what tobacco companies had done previously, and we stopped those activities.
So Exhibit 25, though, is an email from Julie Henderson a month before this life skills proposal about how Big Tobacco promoted life skills training in the 1990s as a PR strategy to deflect attention from its efforts to targeting kids. So Ms. Gould, has Juul ever marketed through cessation programs?
We have never marketed to kids. Anything that we undertook in the educational space was intended to keep youth away from vaping products.
You don't think it's weird? You don't think any of this sounds strange to find a select group of people who are of a specific demographic that is highly vulnerable to marketing, the type of marketing and the type of education that you're providing to use your product? You don't think that sounds strange at all?
As I noted before, all of these educational efforts were intended to keep youth from using the product. When we understood what had happened before and how these were being perceived, we stopped the programming.
Okay, well, one other vulnerable population that I have concerns about is that in Exhibit 26, Juul hired the Trevino Consulting Group to market to smoking cessation programs run by community-based groups, including veterans organizations. It states that, quote, in order to market its technology, Juul must form strategic partnerships and develop programs that resonate with adults for prevention and cessation. Were the veterans and other smokers participating in the cessation programs aware that Juul was using them as a marketing opportunity?
I would really have to look at the document to be able to.
Well, I can't imagine that veterans groups were aware that they were being marketed to when you're talking about smoking cessation programs. Am I right?
Again, I would really need to look at the document before.
So I'll tell you why that bothers me in particular is that when we're working, in my past life, we worked with vulnerable veterans experiencing homelessness, who experience PTSD, serious challenges. And many of them, throughout that process, became addicted to cigarettes. And they are a particularly vulnerable group of people who are highly tendent towards addiction. And so for you all to go into those kinds of groups where people are seeking treatment and care and support and use that as a marketing tool is incredibly disturbing to me. And I think that this is something that we have to investigate further. Thank you. I yield back.